Hey there, toy collector friends and Transformers fans alike. Welcome back to the channel. It is I, the Triple TC, that is the time-travelling toy collector, and today we're having another entry into our perusal of Transformers that have base modes. Now, historically, I've always spent some time being a little bit less than positive around some of the base modes that we've seen. I was going to say we've endured. Maybe endured is the right word. But you know, they haven't always been super successful. And then on occasion you get one or two that is really quite good. And I think one of the things I've been wanting to do for quite a while but never really got round to, and here I am now starting to do just that, is look at some of those who have base modes and start to look at them from the point of view of what I've chosen so far is 5 criteria to see whether or not these base modes actually stand up. We know already some of them are not going to, but some of them might. And one of the ones I was really keen to revisit was this one. And this is the Sky Lynx War for Cybertron Earthrise Sky Lynx base mode. And the reason I think I wanted to visit this is because this one holds a really special place in my heart. Some of you will know this, if you've been with the channel for a long time. If you're new or newish to the channel or a casual popper-inner, you might not know this, so I'm more than happy to share. The very first Transformer that I got of the new waves of Transformers, so once I'd long since finished collecting Transformers as a child, was this. This was the gatekeeper, if you like. This was the gateway Transformer drug that got me back into collecting Transformers. It was bought for me by someone very special for a Christmas present. I think initially as a bit of a joke present, really, because I'd seen it and I was like, well, I never had the original of this, and this looks really good. It looks like a real significant upgrade. And from that, I started discovering other YouTube channels that talked about other Transformers that had been re-released or were being re-released. And having then got this in hand, I absolutely fell back in love with the Transformers. And again, that prompted me, not along with other factors in my life at the time, to go back and revisit some of the toys that I'd had as a child and some of the toys I'd missed out on as a child. And Sky Lynx was one of those that didn't make it to the UK in their original format, or at the very least, if it did, I never saw it. It was just one of those characters that appeared in the cartoons and had no toy-based counterpart for us to engage with. So it was one of those that was on my kind of holy grail wish list. And then I just found this. I saw this. I don't know. I think it may have been accidentally that I saw this. And I went, wow, Sky Lynx is back and means business. Because, of course, for all that the original Sky Lynx was phenomenal and did incredible things for the 80s, it still also carried with it a lot of the aesthetic and the capabilities of the 80s, being polite about it. Whereas this Earthrise version was unfettered by some of those things, if not all of those things. And electronics aside, which, to be fair, this does not need, in my opinion, really knocked my socks off. And I really wanted to spend some time looking at and revisiting the base mode in particular, because for me, this was aside from Metroplex, which I did have as a child, this was the first transforming base mode that I'd ever had. I tell a lie. I also had Trypticon as a child as well. But that's a more complicated story. But yeah, I did have Trypticon, the original Trypticon and the original Metroplex. But never this. And of course, the original Sky Lynx didn't do this anyway. This is the extent of the modern engineering that we now have around us in this day and age. So that's me doing a bit of context setting waffle. Here is the base mode for Sky Lynx. I've had to zoom quite out because, again, a bit like the Star Optimus Prime that I looked at recently, there's a bit of real estate with this. It's not as big as Star Optimus, but it certainly is sprawling. So I will zoom in a little bit more, and we'll go a little bit sort of handheld to explore it in a bit more detail. But there's so many wonderful sort of facets to it. We've got this ramp assembly that takes you all the way up into the storage area of the shuttlecraft. I will just draw attention to the fact the shuttlecraft does tab in, but it tabs in the most precarious fashion. So I'm going to try not to knock it, because I think the minute I knock it, the shuttle portion will just tip over and fall and kill what little illusion there is. Now, one of the nice things about this, and most of this range of toys, is this connection here. And they also double up the connections here and here, which means you can extend them and expand them and connect them to other aspects and other base modes that are in the range, such as Fort Max, such as Triptychon. I believe some of the other base modes have them as well. I think some of them were Power of the Primes, which was not something that I was around for or had a particular interest in overall. But I love this because I just love the fact that it gives Sky Lynx a kind of shuttle launch pad, but it's slightly more than a shuttle launch pad. You can see the vents here and the fans and the towers and the defense opportunities. And to be fair, you can do other configurations of this. This is sort of more or less the stock configuration, but more configurations are certainly available. And I think it looks and is terrific. I think it has a really good presence. Now, if you haven't yet seen, or have no interest in seeing, my other video on this topic, I'll have to zoom out again so you can get a reasonable portion of this in camera. I picked 5 criteria to start looking at these base modes with. I'm more than happy for people to suggest in the comments additional criteria, which I can then use in future videos when I'm looking at them. But the 5 that I went for were playability, interactivity, levels, as in within the base mode, to give it, you know, that sense of space and presence, function, and perhaps the most important of all, fun. Now, playability is the first one, and for me, playability is about, can you get your hands on it, can you do stuff? Now, overall, I would say yes, you can, particularly because it's got interactivity with other bases, but also it's just screams touch me and play with me, which admittedly is not something I'd go around screaming because I'd probably get arrested. But I love the fact that you can, and I'm not big on blast effects, but there are several points within the base where you could attach blast effects, which would suggest that it's being attacked, or it's in receipt of being. I'm just sort of putting them in places to hold them. It's not necessarily the right places for them. But you know, you can dress it up and create diorama for various battle sequences that you might want to generate and take pictures of, for example. So can you play with it? Yes, you can. The only caveat being, if you don't play carefully, and who wants to play carefully, so it's quite an important caveat, then you may well knock the shuttle section off. So that's a con, but overall it's quite full of pluses. I've already mentioned interactivity, and I think this interactivity element of the different bases is quite good. I understand it can also connect to the Botropolis rescue set, and that's something that I've recently picked up. So it's something I'm going to look at really soon and do a video on. And then once I've done a video on that, I think we'll do a part 2 to this, and I'll see just how well it does connect with the Sky Lynx set. In terms of other interactivity, how well can it interact with other figures? Well, from the same trilogy, albeit from the Kingdom line, I've got Commander Class Rodimus here, and again, he's a couple of scales probably out to be fully able to integrate and interact with this base mode, but he can fill it out. Similarly, I've got Cerebros here, who is the headmaster that came with the recent HasLab set, the Omega Prime HasLab set, and he can fit. And he can fit in a few different places, and he might be a bit more to scale for this. You know, he might be more your target your sort of target character to incorporate in these various positions across the base mode, because you know that's a very particular scale size. And again, I'm thinking of my Omega Supreme, who also comes with a Micromaster character that could also interact with this, particularly with the gantries and the connecting gantries. So it has some interactivity, but it is clearly scaled for a slightly smaller figure point. Does it have levels? Yes, it does. It has obviously the ground level. It's got the towers at the front, which has got interchangeable systems here that could be used to fire. I'm hoping I didn't make myself look like a numpty. No, you can. We can put these on here so they can fire. Can they? Am I talking nonsense? Please don't be talking nonsense. There we go. Talk nonsense enough. So, yep, so that can be used. We've, of course, got this massive level in the middle, although he can blast off. So it does have levels, but they're not really interactive levels. They're there, and they convey a certain something, but they're not necessarily the most playable of levels. Does it have a function? Well, it has a very obvious function. It's a defense base that also launches the Sky Lynx shuttlecraft, and allows for loading of appropriately sized figures through the power of our imagination into shuttlecraft mode, and away he zooms, let's assume. But other than that, the function is a bit limited, because obviously this is part of Sky Lynx and forms part of the overall robot in its full beast mode. But if you apply your imagination and you're being creative, it works for me. I'm going to go with it works for me because it does. And the last one is fun. Does it exude fun? And I've got to be honest with you, it does. It really does exude fun. I mean, okay, I've deliberately picked a figure that's a little on the large size for this, but a commander class figure, even a leader scale, isn't going to engage perhaps as well. But you've got deluxe class figures that would probably fit really well in here. The Micromasters, the Headmasters, there is scope. There is scope to have fun with these figures. And the set in itself allows for the wonderful opportunity to be inventive and creative and to let your imagination run wild. And I think as long as it lets you do that, you're not just dealing with a brick that gets in the way of you being able to have fun with it. You're on a winner. And I think Sky Lynx, and this is perhaps one of the reasons it A, means so much to me, but B, also really, really got me back into collecting Transformers, is because I was so impressed, given that I hadn't had any contact with Transformers from, I would say, 87, 88, 87, 88, through till when I got this for Christmas, about 7 or 8 years ago. Maybe. So until then, I was oblivious to what had happened in the world of Transformers, and as I say, this was my gateway Transformer to get me back interested, to get me watching some of those reviewers who I found on YouTube that introduced me to so many Transformers that were now available or had just been available. I was like, oh my god, I have to have these, I have to collect these. And I suppose in some ways, it's Sky Lynx's fault that I'm here now doing this video. So it seems appropriate that I do include Sky Lynx in this particular series on base modes. So yeah, overall, do I think, looking at those criteria and my experience of Sky Lynx, does he work as a base mode? He absolutely does. I think it really, really, really works very, very well. It's not it's not a city base. It's just a sort of defensible base that has a function to launch the shuttle, but it's a base that works. There is some engagement opportunities. And again, it always comes back to, can we use our imagination? Does it fuel our imagination, or does it stifle it? And this, I think, for me, absolutely fuels my imagination. That's it from me on the Sky Lynx base mode. Let me know in the comments whether you agree, you disagree. What do you think is the best base mode in any of the Transformers? What do you think is the worst? I'd love to hear about it. I might have it, and then we can have a laugh looking at it. So yeah, thanks for sticking with me for the last 15 or 16 minutes. I've been the Triple TC, that's the Time Travelling Toy Collector. You have been a fantastic audience member. If you haven't already, it would be great if you could like the video, plus drop a totally free subscription to the channel. But if not, don't worry, I'm just glad you stuck with it. And I look very much forward to seeing you in another video, either a future video or, of course, a past video. If you have a little shifty around the channel, I'm sure you'll find something that will catch your eye. This has been Sky Lynx in his base mode as he appeared in the War for Cybertron Earthrise line. Goodness me, going back a bit there. And it just remains for me to say that things of beauty really can be toys forever. Take care. Bye-bye for now.